Alright, I think I'm live. Let's see what this looks like. Let's go to the control room. Okay, so I'm streaming from OBS, but how do I make this? How do I make this my actual thing? Oh, hey, people are already in the chat. When do they? I can't see when they messaged. Can I choose this? You know what? I don't think it matters. Hopefully it doesn't matter. Just trying to figure out how to stream from OBS to the event I set up, but it's just streaming from something else. No, didn't want to click that. Either keyboard or DeAndre or whoever else just joined. Can you hear me just fine? Let's see if, hold on. Yeah, I'm in the green on OBS. Yeah, I'm not talking a whole lot right now. I'm still trying to figure out. This is the first stream I've ever done. Like I streamed to Twitch a few months ago for like New Year's, but that did not go over so well. Alright. Okay, how do I... So I want to share this to Facebook and stuff. Before I actually get started. Right now I'm just kind of sitting here. Da, 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 da. Well, I wonder if... Oh, definitely want to mute that. Alright, I found the... Dang. Let's open up Facebook. You can't see anything what I'm doing because I have a dual screen monitor and I'm currently on the other monitor, so just enjoy that picture of Yang while I set all this up. See, what other groups do I want to post to? Oh, better post to Discord. Alright, let's return here. How many people are watching? Dashboard. 5 people watching. And one of them is me on another tab. At least I think it counts me. Maybe it doesn't. That would be cool. That would mean that 6 people are watching me instead of just 5. Alright, I think I'm gonna... Should test it out, the audio levels first. Oh, well, we're doing this. I'm gonna... on my phone. So, this is Star Wars Battlefront 2. One of my personal favorite video games. I certainly played it way too much throughout middle school when it was out. It is just throughout middle school. Yeah. That's why I wanted to mute it, because I was about to get feedback. Alright, so everything seems to be working fine. Got OBS up, got the stream up, got Facebook up. So I'm just gonna play around, show you guys why this game is awesome and why DICE should be ashamed of themselves for gutting it. First of all, let's change some of the settings. Let's go all the way up on these. I want to be able to get a hero before. Like, I want to be able to play as the hero often enough. Alright, so let's get some maps started. I'm gonna show off some of my favorite maps. So background on this game while I get these set up. Star Wars Battlefront, the first one, came out in 2004-ish. Yeah, I think it was 2004. I know Battlefront 2 came out in 2005. I'm pretty sure this game came out like right before that. What else do I want? Hoth, definitely want Hoth. I want... Actually, I'll leave Hunt on. Let's just use Galactic Civil War for that one. And let's get some Clone War maps on there. How about Utapau with the clones? Get Mustafar with the clones too. Alright, so I played the first Battlefront game. I was in 5th grade at the time? 4th and 5th grade in 2004. I play with my best friend Blaine all the time. And even though I seem like a movie guy, and anybody who's watched my video series MIS would know this, but in middle school, I kind of fell away from movies. I fell away from movies, and I definitely fell away from TV. Part of it was me just thinking I was too old to watch cartoons, and part of it was thinking that Cartoon Network was going downhill. One of those things was true, and I'll let you be the judge of that. But that was also around the same time that I started, like, getting into video games. Like, I had always played video games, but it wasn't until the Battlefront games came out that I was really hooked on video games and shooters in particular. Is there any... I know there's a way to do random... Can't remember how to do them in a random order, though. Let's get a space battle in there. My mind's in like 3 different places right now. I'm watching the stream, trying to do all this. And also trying to share my experience with the venerated Battlefront franchise. While also dealing with Facebook notifications. And people trying to text me. So this game was made by Pandemic. And same thing with the first Battlefront. And this took everything that was cool about the first Battlefront and kicked it up to like 12. There was some things I wish they would have kept from the original Battlefront. Namely some of the maps. There's some of my favorite maps from the original Battlefront game are not in this game or any other game. Namely Tatooine Dune Sea, Geonosis Spire, and the Renvar Ice Caves. This game took out a lot of the big empty levels and substituted them with more like kind of corridor shooter type levels. Which is fine because they're still fun levels, but... Oh, whoa. This is not right. Hold on. I gotta fix this. I thought I had it all figured out. that better? Okay, yeah, that's way better. Sorry, first stream. And I had it all leveled out, and then as soon as I started the actual game, OBS decided to crop the image differently. So let's go with the droids. Droids were so OP in the first Battlefront game. They kind of nerfed them in this, and I'm glad they did, because in the first Battlefront game you could seriously just pick a destroyer droid right off the bat, and you'd be pretty much unstoppable against the AI. And this wasn't by any means like the first or even best Star Wars game. The Star Wars always kind of broke the mold with licensed games. Licensed games tended to be like pretty awful, especially back in like the 80s with the NES and LJN and companies like that. But Star Wars was always kind of, for a long time anyway, virtually unmolested by cheap cash grabs. Which is why you have so many excellent Star Wars games. You got the first two Battlefront games, you got Knights of the Old Republic, you got all the Jedi Knight games, the Star Wars arcade games, the TIE Fighter series, Rogue Squadron, I almost said Rogue One. By the way, my video on Rogue One is by far the cringiest video I have ever been a part of. Like, I have contemplated deleting that on a couple occasions. I'm also nowhere near as good as at this game on PC as I was on PS2 when I first played it and first bought it. Oops. Kinda in the zone right now. This is why I can't be a Let's Player. Because I don't talk enough when I'm playing video games. Yeah. Star Wars Battlefront 2, and to an equal extent the first Battlefront, were very successful games. At the time, I'm not sure if this is true anymore, but at the time they were the highest selling Star Wars games ever. They might have been passed up by The Force Unleashed. Which, if they did, good on Force Unleashed, because Force Unleashed is a pretty fun game. Again, there's a lot of fun Star Wars games out there. In fact, I would say Star Wars is the one license that has more good games than bad. Yeah. I forgot to have it on max reinforcements. And now I'm stuck just batting clean up with Maul. Victory! Okay, now let's go with Rebels. Yes, I'm really boring at this game. I always pick the regular soldier. Sometimes I'll pick one of the special classes like the Clone Commander, but for the most part it's just a battle rifle for me. Anyway, so it is 9:42 right now. Got 9 people watching. This stream is actually it was kind of an impromptu thing. I woke up this morning after a conversation with some of the people on the podcast we recorded last night. I thought that I should do something special to celebrate that I have 100 subscribers on my YouTube channel now. And videos take time. My next video probably won't be coming out for like another 2 weeks. So instead I decided to just throw this together, because I thought it would be fun, and it gives me an excuse to play this game again. Hate it when they pop up right as it's going white. Get this. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So 100 subscribers. I mean, I knew it would happen eventually. I'm pretty persistent with my channel. I do my best to pour myself out to every Facebook page I can. Thing is, I'm not big on other social media platforms. I don't use Reddit. I don't use Tumblr. I have a DeviantArt account, but I never use it. Oh god, I just looked at the live chat. Keyboard and sock are going back and forth. Go Republic this time. I'm reading the chat. Sock's trying to get sassy with me. look away for like 30 seconds to read the chat and the AI already lost this command post. I'm getting it back. Yeah, but I would have been streaming on Twitch. But this whole thing was because of my 100 subscriber benchmark, so I thought, hey, I'm gonna try this YouTube streaming thing. Though I don't think Twitch would have went any better because I'd still be using OBS and all that, but and I streamed to Twitch before a few months ago. I was saying this earlier. I streamed Jedi Knight, and I had a lot of technical issues with Twitch. But that was back on like New Year's. I tried doing a New Year stream. Are we losing? I wasn't even paying attention. I'm turning this around. As soon as I say I'm turning this around, I think that was the first time I've ever actually been defeated in years. Probably because I was checking the chat at the beginning of the match instead of actually playing. You know, the last time I was the rebel, so I'm gonna go Empire this time. And I'm not gonna mess around. So there's always that one AI that's on the rebel side who always tries shooting the dead bodies. First time I saw it 12 years ago. It's kind of enduring. Kind of annoying. Rip. What? How do they... I got bothened. Yeah. The shotgun does not mess around in this game, though. Shotgun should never mess around in games. Let's see if I can capture this before taking over as the Emperor. Once more the Sith will rule the galaxy. And it's still there. I wish there was, like, a movie or something where the Emperor just went ham on a bunch of rebels. Be like that scene with Darth Vader at the end of Rogue One, except with the Emperor. I think it would just be all kinds of ridiculous, but in all the right ways. Clone Wars had an episode like that. With Sidious fighting Maul. That was something. Yeah, I'm cheap, I know. What's this? Right click is not wanting to cooperate. Not leading the shot enough. There's no hiding from me. Anyway, so another thing I wanted to talk about while I was playing this game, and this is probably as good a time as any because, let's face it, the AT-AT is way too OP. Especially against the AI because they just follow the same pathway when they're exiting the hangar. It's really easy to trail them and I gave them a false sense of hope. Do I want to be Lord Vader? What? Yes. I might not get another chance. Oh, I'll get another chance. Tried hitting the Tauntaun with the lightsaber throw. It's too fast. should have taken care of these turrets first. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to talk about was, the cancelled Star Wars Battlefront 3 that was going to come out. It was originally scheduled to come out in, I think, 2007, and then pandemic had, financial troubles, and they got shut down. I think they got bought out by EA, then shut down. But the point is, then LucasArts transferred the project over to Free Radical, and Free Radical fucked around way too much. And then Free Radical failed and got bought out, and Battlefront 3 got cancelled for what seemed like good. The Free Radical was supposed to have the game out in 2010. Then it got cancelled. And it was the end of Battlefront 3. And it still is the end of Battlefront 3 because EA refuses to acknowledge the previous games. Which I think that's what like pisses me off the most about EA and DICE's Battlefronts. They're just sheer disregard for what came before and the expectations that come with what came before. What? Say capturing this. I'm jacking their snow speeder. I tried getting them. That Full Metal Main said pandemic got a pandemic. But he is the Senate. AT-AT. Not AT-AT. Oh, okay, so Caleb Trigg asked what inspired me to write Beyond. The episode Burning the Candle. That's it really all just boils down to that episode from Volume 2. Oh my god, there's so many fucking wombats. See, this is why DICE has nothing on Pandemic. You will never see this image in an EA Battlefront game. It's so absurd. Anyway, back to Ruby On, which I'm sure anybody who cares enough about me to watch the stream knows that I write a Ruby fanfiction called Ruby On. I was really intrigued by Ruby and Yang's backstory and how Raven tied into all that in Team Stark, and this was before we even knew her name was Raven. But that whole family dynamic just intrigued me. But what intrigued me even more, and it's something that happened in that same exact episode, and I talk about it in my honest look in Ruby. At my honest look at Ruby Rose. And that is Ruby scene with Ozpin, where she says, where Ozpin says something along the lines of, "You can't spend your whole life on a battlefield," and Ruby's like, "Yeah, that lesson's been going around a lot lately." And that kind of fascinated me about her character, and I wasn't even really a fan of Ruby up to that point. I thought it was alright. I thought it was kind of nothing special. Aside from the fact that it was a web series, that kind of gave it an edge over other stuff. But it was that moment where it turned me from a casual viewer to a fan, and anytime I really get into a show and stuff, I start predicting and theorizing, like, what could have happened in the past, where might it go from there, and Ruby On spun from all of that. All of that is what spawned Ruby On. Somebody said, I think it was Keyboard, or somebody said in the chat, that they wanted to see somebody play as the Rebels on this map, and here I am, and I'm gonna win. So long as I remember how to switch places, and so long as I learn how to shoot. This is why I don't play first-person shooters anymore, because I suck at them. Oh. Oh. I'm gonna die. My mouse. Oh, nope. Thought I botched it there, but I didn't. God, these controls are really sensitive. Which is good for the space battles, and that's why I have it set the way I do. But for the ground battle here, kind of a mess. Let's see who needs to be zapped. This game mode XL is why this is the best version of Battlefront, and I'm somebody who played the PS2 version for like 3 years straight. I did not mean to pick the engineer. I'm good with the engineer, I'm good with the shotgun, but this is not the kind of map you want to be... You want to have a shotgun with. And this is why. Too many people. And too many things like that going on. let's... I know I should probably be locking on to the AT-ATs, but way too many people around. Go with the Wookiee. Yeah, the Wookiee bowcaster is like a shotgun meets a sniper rifle. It's kind of the best weapon in the game. Not my favorite weapon, but probably the best. My favorite weapon is the chain gun for the clone commando. Even though it takes a really long time to start firing. I'm scrolling through the chat right now. Kind of neglected it. Favorite fanfiction? None of them. That was that guy that asked that. But no. Here's the thing. I don't read a lot of fanfiction. I just write it. When I sit down and read, I have way too many, like, I'm such a slow reader, and I have way too many other important books sitting on my bookshelf, neglected, that I need to read before I devote any kind of serious time to reading fanfiction. But I have read a few good ones. Anything by Anonymous Prick 3 is pretty good. Anything by College Fool is pretty good. What's the other one? I talked about it in the fucking podcast. Innocence by Last Sonata is a pretty good one, especially if you're into White Rose. It's probably the best White Rose fic out there, and it's a trilogy. Kind of teeters out in the end, but you know, trilogies. It's always the third one that's the weakest. And that is almost like cold hard fact. Like the original Star Wars trilogy, Return of the Jedi is an all-time freaking classic, but it ain't the original and it ain't Empire. The Dark Knight trilogy, which I've been meaning to rewatch because I recently got Batman Begins on DVD again. Batman Begins was great. Dark Knight is like a damn near perfect crime drama that just so happens to have Batman in it. Not a good Batman movie. Not like a definitive Batman or anything. But it's kind of better than a Batman movie. If that makes any sense. And I'll get into that in a future video. If you check the credits for my most recent video, the next MIS is going to be on the Dark Knight. Oops. Team kill for the win. Is on a newer platform with the AI from Alien Isolation. No, thank you. The Jacob V11. I find it funny how this game has more content than the new Battlefront game plus the DLC. Oh my god. That was... Oh god. The thing is, I can't really blame DICE for this. They had a serious deadline. EA basically told them, hey DICE, you have 6 months to make a freaking Battlefront game. And you know what? They did alright. It looks, plays, and sounds great. Its only like real problem is the lack of content, and that only gets highlighted more when you take these games into consideration, which I think is one of the reasons why EA is trying to like brush this game especially under the rug. Like, have you, if any of you saw like the panels at, I think it was no, it wasn't E3, it was before that. Whenever they were talking about Battlefront 2, it was at some, I think it might have been PAX? I don't know, but they talked about like all this new stuff that the next Battlefront game is gonna have. And it's just all stuff that this game had 12 years ago. 10 years before their first Battlefront game. And yeah, the fact that it's called Star Wars Battlefront 2 just kind of irks me. It irked me when their last Battlefront, when the first EA DICE Battlefront was just called Star Wars Battlefront. I wish they would kind of go the PSP route. Like, never have a Star Wars Battlefront 3, just have, like, various subtitles. Like, the PSP Battlefront games had Star Wars Battlefront Renegade Squadron and Elite Squadron. It would be cool to take kind of that approach, I think. It would help distance them from these games and avoid comparison and make it seem like more of a reboot than a cash grab. It's kind of like what Mega Man X did for on the Super Nintendo. It was like, hey, this is Mega Man, but this is the new Mega Man, so we're calling it Mega Man X. And it helped carve Mega Man X's own identity and distance it from the older classic Mega Man games, which they're all classic Mega Man and Mega Man X. Mega Man X is my favorite Mega Man game, but the original franchise was stronger for a lot longer, and I think a lot of that has to do with the timing. Mega Man came out on NES and was able to inhabit the NES for basically its entire runtime. Whereas Mega Man X was on Super Nintendo, then they were also making games on PlayStation and like Sega Saturn and N64, and there was even Mega Man X games on PS2, and it just wasn't able to adapt. Wasn't able to adapt, right? Alright, I'm slowly catching up with you guys in the chat. Caleb Trigg said, cool, so the inspiration for Generations was what was the contributing factors for the story, and what do you think of the current writing of Ruby? That last part's a loaded question. So I'll answer the question about Generations first. Ruby on Generations was not even a thought in my mind until probably about a month or two before I started actually like writing it. Because it was supposed to all end with Ruby on War. Like that was the original thing. No, I'm just gonna talk about Ruby on and the creative process for that for a few minutes during this battle. And then I'll try to find another question after the battle. So before Volume 3 came out, I planned. I didn't want to do a tournament arc because I didn't have confidence in my ability to write action scenes, which seems really weird considering Rubion is mostly known for its really dynamic action scenes. At least that's what I've been told. I don't know what everybody thinks of Rubion, except I haven't had any serious complaints about it. So I wanted to wait until after Volume 3 was over to start writing. Because I wanted Volume 3 to take care of like all the tournament stuff, because I knew it was coming. Everybody knew it was coming. They were hyping it up they were hyping up that tournament for so long, and it kind of ended up being a disappointment, but that's a video for a different day. I do plan on doing a full video on why I found the Vital Festival tournament to be very underwhelming in many, many regards. So I had a 100 chapter outline done several months before Volume 3 even started. And that 100 chapter outline actually ended with the start of the Grim War and the battle between Ruby and my OC villain Akagi. And then Volume 3 happened. Well, not, Volume 3 happened later. So, I planned, after that, to have, to do a time skip. To do a time skip to where it was, like, after the war, because, again, I didn't have confidence that I would actually be able to write action scenes. And so, I was kind of outlining based on that. I wanted to write as few action scenes as I could. As I could get away with anyway. And, that ended up being Ruby on War. The time skip, post-war stuff, that ended up being Ruby on War. So yes, I actually planned for Levi to be a major player before I ever conceived of the Grimoire, or like what Salem's origin was going to be, or what Cinder's origin was going to be, or any of the or anything involving Necros Faust. And yeah, and part of Ruby on War was going to be done in flashbacks, and it was going to be flashing back to stuff that happened during the war to kind of close the gap and explain like why things are going on. It was very, very different from what it ended up being, but I ended up really liking the idea of some of the battles, and I ended up making that into its own outline for its own story that was going to be called Tales of the Warfront. And then Volume 3 happened. And I had to change my entire outline because Pyrrha died, Torchwick died, Beacon fell, and those were going to be 3 major things in my original 100 chapter outline. And because of that, I was able to trim a lot of the fat and just start from like right after the fall of Beacon, and anybody who's read Ruby on knows how the story ended up. But Ruby on Generations came way later, and it actually involved Levi. It was actually because of Levi. It was when I was writing Ruby on War, and I came up with the name for Ruby and Jean's kid, Citrine. And I really liked that. I really liked that name. I really liked all the symbolism behind it. And I started like imagining what she might be like as an adult, and I kind of had this idea of Levi, first of all, surviving Ruby on War, and terrorizing the family at a later date. And there was an original plan that never came to fruition that was going to kind of tie Citrine in with Levi and his background, and I kind of pay lip service to that in a couple chapters where I talk about how Citrine is not all that different from Levi when it comes to like her drive and her willingness to kind of cross that line and her desire to get stronger. I think I had 3 different characters say if I didn't know any better, I'd say you were a Searlevy, not a Rose. And that was all supposed to be like kind of lip service that that Levi was a little closer related to Ruby than he even knows, and that Citrine was kind of like the re-merging of the bloodlines, so to speak. Like Levi was gonna actually come from a much older portion of the Silver-Eye clan. And that same like kind of clan also like ties into the arcs, which is why Ruby and Jean's kid is actually way closer to being like related to the overall Searlevy clan than she is most of the Roses. But that idea never really came to fruition because I kind of changed Levi's backstory as I went along and as I developed him, which kind of as you do. Kind of as you do when you're writing episodically, the way I do, and on a daily basis, the way I do. So yeah, I didn't even start planning Ruby on Generations until I was in the middle of writing Ruby on War. Deckire said I said faction for Battlefront, not fanfiction. Oops. Favorite faction on Battlefront 1, the droids, because they're just too OP, and Battlefront 2, the clones, because I really like their designs, and I love the clone commander. The last of Star Wars prequel trilogy was the best one, but that's not saying much. So, allegedly, I'm not sure how much I believe George Lucas's word on this, but allegedly, he planned the whole thing out from the get-go. I don't think he planned the whole thing out, I think he planned the major events out, and most of those major events are stuff from Revenge of the Sith. So Revenge of the Sith is the one that he had the most plans for, and Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones were kind of tacked on from there. Not so much tacked on, but like he did not plan those out nearly as much. So it's very similar to Ruby, actually. There's a lot of eerie parallels between the Star Wars prequels and Ruby. I might even do a video about that, but I had a pretty lengthy discussion with Celtic Phoenix Productions, McNeil, on that subject in the comment section of one of his videos. Or maybe it was, and no, we kind of went back and forth. It was his video on fixing Ruby's lore, and it was my video of the What If Ruby Volume 1 was good. Yeah, I tend to fall more on the side that defends the prequels than attacks them. Like Attack of the Clones' biggest sin is that it's just kind of boring. Spends way too long on like romantic melodrama that isn't why people freaking went to see that movie. Revenge of the Sith's biggest problem is that Attack of the Clones was not adequate setup. And Phantom Menace's biggest problem is that it was just kind of a cluster. It was just kind of a mess. Script needed rewrites, kind of like Ruby. Which brings me to the question that somebody else asked. What do I think of Ruby's writing? It's the worst part of the show. Ruby's writing is the worst part of the entire series. It's frustratingly bad sometimes. Yeah, I'm actually a little more concerned about what Disney's doing with Star Wars than what the prequels did with it. I liked Force Awakens a lot, and I liked Rogue One just fine. But they weren't. I think having it be an annual franchise is a bad idea. It only works for Marvel because the Marvel Cinematic Universe is all superheroes, but superheroes is not a genre in and of itself. And I think that's the difference. I think that's what separates why it works and why it's going to continue to work for the MCU and why it's not going to work for Star Wars. And just look at the fact that they're making a solo Han Solo movie. Pun not intended. It really just does not look like it's going to be any good. They're having production issues. They lost their director. Ron Howard's an awesome director. One of my all-time favorite movies is A Beautiful Mind, which he won the Academy Award for back in 2001. But that's not the kind of guy you would want directing Star Wars, and frankly, neither is J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams' only, real talent is aping other people's talent, and it really shows in The Force Awakens being a rehash of A New Hope, which I was fine with because they were able to work it into the meta-narrative with all the characters wanting to literally live up to the Star Wars legacy. Check Facebook real quick. Just a bunch of likes. Eskioto asked favorite team. I'm gonna assume you mean Ruby team, and I'm going to say Team Ruby probably. I know it's kind of a boring choice, but all the other teams have way too many like weaknesses with character development. And so does Ruby, but Keyboard Kitten asked favorite Sith. Darth Bane. Darth Bane. Those books are freaking phenomenal. What do you think is the worst part of the Ruby fandom? This is from the Jacob 11. Worst part of the Ruby fandom. A lot of people want to say shipping. I disagree with that. The worst part of the fandom are, in my experience, the worst part of the Ruby fandom are the people who think that the creators are somehow infallible. They're far from infallible. In fact, they are, and this goes for all of them, they're not that great. And yes, this goes for Miles, who isn't that great of a writer. This goes for Carrie, who's not that great of a director. This goes for Gray, who I don't know. Gray seems fine to me. But he's just a producer. He just signs the checks, and he's also the voice of Torchwick, and I like Torchwick. I like his performance. I think Gray's a good voice actor. And this goes for Monty, who everybody said like he was a great animator, but choreography isn't even a tenth of what's important in a fight scene. And I plan on doing a video on this too, about like why Monty's fight scenes have always bothered me, and it's not limited to Ruby. It goes for Red vs. Blue and Dead Fantasy as well. G-Man Q said Team Coffee should become the main characters. No. Gonna get in a bomber again. Yeah, my main point about Monty's action scenes is that they're kind of lifeless. They're the anime equivalent of toddlers banging action figures together. Most of them are. This isn't true for all of them, but a large percentage of his fight scenes, especially Dead Fantasy, just has no weight to them. They're all just kind of pointless and filler, and it's like, oh, flashy and well animated and stuff, but you watch it once and you've seen everything. There's nothing deeper to digest. As somebody who is big on characters, I think characters are the most important part of any story-based medium. Yeah, Dead Fantasy just bored me to tears. I couldn't get through the first three, and they're only like 2 minutes long each. Don't know if my bombs need a recharge or if it's my right click going out again. Yeah, it's the right click. The right click button on my mouse has been kind of going out lately. Gotta press down really hard on it. I'm due for a new mouse. I'm gonna land in their hangar and tear some stuff up. Oh. Probably look where I'm going instead of looking down at my phone. No, that's... No, I pulled back too soon. There we go. G-Man Q said, my problem with the first Dead Fantasy was that they just kept getting hit and seemingly no damage done. Yeah, that's part of the problem. That is certainly part of the problem. I think that was the last in the playlist I had. So... Yeah, see. This is what happens when you run these old games on new PCs. Let's kick the reinforcements up. Let's pick some different maps. Any suggestions? Gonna give it a few minutes. Check my other stuff. See, what haven't I picked? I haven't picked most of them. Let's go with... Get a big vehicle level. That's the thing, they took all the... Not a lot of good vehicle levels in Battlefront 2. All the good vehicle levels were the ones that got cut out. Caleb Trick says Kashyyyk, and Jacob11 says Camino. Let's go Kashyyyk. Go all the game modes. Let's go Camino. Go both eras. Go random order. That's what I wanted to do before. You know what? Let's pump up the difficulty. And let's do Jabba's Palace. I'm going to take this opportunity to thank everyone who's watching and everyone who's commenting, and everyone who has watched my videos, commented on them, liked them, shared them if you did. Because without you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. There would be no reason to. I would probably be still sitting at my computer. Probably reading or just bombing on Facebook right now. Now that I got the thanks out of the way, which only took like 10 seconds. I kind of want to talk about the upcoming Star Wars Battlefront Deuce from EA and DICE. I have high hopes for it, but not high expectations. They're adding a lot of, like, common sense stuff in that should have never not been in a Battlefront game. Namely, more than just one era. Like, I don't know what possessed DICE to not have Clone Wars in the last game, but the new one is going to have Clone Wars, Galactic Civil War, and New Trilogy stuff. I got that just in time. Sniper, I am not. The elite rifle is like the most OP. Who do you think is the better team leader, Jean or Ruby? Neither one are really good at leading. I don't think we've actually... I don't know if it's that we haven't seen a good leader character, or if Miles and Carrie are just incapable of writing a good leader character. But I stressed a lot in my honest look at Ruby Rose that Ruby is kind of impulsive. Like, she comes up with a lot of good ideas and she works well with her team, but she still goes out on her own and gets herself into trouble without, like, notifying her team, and that's just that's not a good thing. And Jean, again, it's like hard to tell if he's just a bad strategist or if Miles and Carrie don't know how to write a good strategist. But Jean's team, Team Juniper, were always just kind of more cohesive, I think. Less, like, butting heads. There was a lot of infighting with Team Ruby, especially at the end of Volume 1 with Weiss and Blake. But I imagine there was a lot of infighting all the time. Like, they never really addressed this, and I wish they would. But Yang is Ruby's big sister. And also probably surrogate mother. How often do you think she's just fine with letting Ruby take charge of a situation? And you know Weiss is a control freak and doesn't want Ruby to be leader, didn't want Ruby to be leader. And you know Weiss and Blake butted heads, and so yeah, there was nothing like that with Team Juniper, which is why I would probably say Jean is the better leader. He's better at managing his team and working with them. And I think a lot of that had to do with Pyrrha. Pyrrha was crazy about Jean and kind of didn't have a will of her own, but she was still like the kind of strong, confident character that everyone trusted and everyone had faith in. She was a prodigy. She was the best around. Nothing was gonna take her down. And because she was kind of into Jean and followed his lead, like, to the letter, no matter how stupid his plans were, that kind of put everybody else in line. Which is actually very realistic. I have to, like, give credit where credit is due on that, and I think a lot of that has to do with a lot of the various branches in Rooster Teeth, so they have a lot to kind of go on as far as leadership goes. But there's a brilliant TED Talks years ago that I watched. That was about leadership, and the thesis of that TED Talk was that the person who starts something is considered the leader, but they're never the reason why they are successful. It is always that second person, the person who seconds that motion. That's what makes the leader successful, and Pyrrha was always that for Jean. And that just led to a much healthier team dynamic for all of them. Ruby might have that with Yang, but again, like, Yang's the older sister. She's probably used to being more in charge than she is. Oh, I am out of ammo. How did that happen? Yeah, flamethrower in the rain. I think Sun is the worst leader of all. I do too. I do too. Volume 4 kind of proved that. Well, Volume 3 proved that. Or Volume 3 at least proved he was a bad strategist. Um, like that was really good bit in the Batman Falling review of Volume 3 was Sun doesn't recognize basic battle tactics. Like maybe he would know that if he didn't skip an entire semester to bum around Vale. Um, I'd also say Coco is a terrible team leader. Um, that mostly stems from my dislike of Coco. But it also kind of is. There's evidence for it in the Vital Festival. How her weapon is not suitable for teamwork, and it's not suitable for a tournament setup. It is suited for standing back with your back against the wall against a horde of Grimm and mowing them down. That is all it is good for. So the fact that she had her and Yatsuhashi in that doubles round kind of proves that she's maybe a little too overconfident and that she should maybe step back and, oh, I don't know, maybe let Velvet use what was in her box for what she was building it up for. That's another thing that irks me about that scene with Velvet, and I didn't even think about it, and well, I thought about it before, but when I was writing the script for my coffee video, it wasn't in my mind, but Velvet had no reason to not use the box during the breach. She had no reason for it. Aside from the fact that Coco was broken to the point where they had to nerf her in Volume 3. But in Volume 2, it kind of implies that, like, hey, save it for the tournament, and she doesn't even get a chance to use it in the tournament because Coco and Yatsuhashi go on to the doubles round. Personally, using... Granted, we don't know what any of their semblances are. Like, it's deeply implied that Velvet's semblance is just mimicry. But other than that, we don't know their semblances. But just going off their weapons, if I were in Coco's position, I would have sent Coco and I would have sent Yatsuhashi and Fox. Because you got, like, the big strong guy, then you got the smaller, fast martial arts type guy. Like, I kind of wish, and this would require for, like, a complete change in the rules of the Vital Festival, but I kind of wish that the person who went to the singles round had to be different from either of the people that were in the doubles round. So, for instance, Team Coffee would have Yatsuhashi and Fox in the doubles round, and then send Velvet in for the singles round to mop up with that weapon of hers. And in Team Ruby's case, have Weiss and Blake go to the doubles round and build on that dynamic, and then have Yang just go to the solo round. Oh, forgot what team I was on. I did not last nearly as long as I thought I would. That round. Oh man. Go for command post 2. Making a bit of a comeback. Still way ahead of them. Caleb Trigg asked, what major changes would you make to Volume 4 besides the obvious? Oh. I might have to think about that for a minute. Well, see, all of the changes I would want to make would have to actually start with the earlier volumes. But as far as Volume 4 as a whole, like, just Volume 1, 2, and 3 are the way we got, and Volume 4 is up to me. I would change the way... I would change the way that Blake found that information. That is the scene that has irked me the most from Volume 4. Is the rooftop fight with her and Ilya. So I would change that entire like thing. That might be a little obvious though. I would give Yang more screen time. I would give her and Yang. I would give. I don't know. See, with production issues aside, production issues are kind of a little harder to talk about because a lot of Volume 4's issues are actually production issues in that they didn't have the time and they don't have the budget to like fully explore a lot of the stuff that they want to do and a lot of the stuff that they set up. And Volume 4 was a massive improvement in that department because they at least tried to give the appropriate screen time to the appropriate characters. Like, there was an honest to God effort there. I would have had a scene in between Weiss agreeing to do the concert and the concert itself, and that scene would include her mother. I think that would be like if I had to just add something instead of just changing it, I would add that. But again, then that would require the crew to come up with to make her mom's character model and hire a voice actress and animate that entire scene, and because it's adding something, you're still filling in the same like production cycle, so that's why when I did my What If Ruby Volume 1 was good, I didn't take anything like that into consideration. I just like, limitless budget, let's just go nuts. How would I have Volume 1 go? And if any of you are wondering, I do plan on doing a What If Volume 2 and What If Volume 3, and I plan on doing one a year, is the thing. So What If Volume 2, coming in about a year. A little less than a year is when I'll sit down and make that. How do you think they should go about fixing the Grimm and make them an actual threat? That sounds like it would be difficult, but it's actually not. Show the character struggling, show them getting knocked around, show them, the white trailer actually did this, that we got just the other day, or yesterday, or 2 days ago now. The white trailer actually showed this with Weiss, like, getting tackled by the Beowulf. Like, show that. Show people actually dying. Show people running out of ammunition against the Grimm, because the Grimm are an interesting threat. They, on one hand, they kind of go by zombie rules. Like, they're kind of this omnipresent threat. They will always be around. There's no way to, like, drive them to extinction, as far as we know anyway. So they'll always be there, and because they get stronger with age, bring in some older Grimm. A lot of people did not like the new Klavi fight. I did. And I liked it because we saw, like, actual teamwork. And I have a video. I have a review for that episode out. So, to paraphrase what I said in that video, people got hurt. People struggled. Ren got his aura knocked out. Nora got her aura knocked out. Jean was struggling. Ruby was there. Probably my biggest complaint with that fight is that Ruby doesn't do nearly enough, but I guess it's not really her fight. It's supposed to be Ren's fight. It's supposed to be closing his preliminary arc. But yeah, the fixing the Grimm is surprisingly easy thing to do. You just gotta show the characters actually struggling against them instead of using them as fodder. Volume 3 did this pretty well too. Cause yeah, the huntsmen were kind of like bopping the floor with them, but you saw them struggling, and yeah, a lot of that struggling was because of the paladins, but I didn't say they did this perfectly. But yeah, we saw them, like, getting smacked around. We saw the Grimm just shrugging off bullets from guns that we saw tear through Grimm in the past. Need to stop forgetting what team I'm on. Kitty Kirishima asked, favorite Grimm so far? It's probably still the Deathstalker. And it's kind of always been the Deathstalker. I just really love the design, and I love giant scorpions. One of my favorite movies, and it's one of those, like, favorite movies that I know isn't even really all that good. But, the original Clash of the Titans from 1980, the best scene in that movie was the giant scorpion fight. And ever since I watched that as like a little kid, I've always loved I've loved scorpions. And so having one of the first Grim we see be a giant scorpion, set the bar pretty high for Grim. Keyboard Kitten said Nuclear Bay. The new Clavy was pretty cool. New Clavy was pretty cool. I also love the dragon. And yes, I call it a dragon. Because wyvern is just a specific kind of dragon. Every wyvern is a dragon, but not every dragon is a wyvern. Only 15 people left. He moved. My map and hunt them down. Over there, but he's surrounded. I think it says that there's some in here. I'm gonna find out pretty soon. Oh! See if I can snipe her out of her perch. Before she gets me again. Or before somebody else gets her. Where'd the sniper go? Oh. Oh well. I won anyway. Oh, this level's gonna be intense. On max settings, with all these hallways crowded, it's gonna be a lot of grenades. Just gonna start with a grenade. I'll hit somebody. Yeah, I hit 2 somebodies. I'm hiding behind Jabba. I'm hiding behind Jim Sterling. Yeah, Gamorreans do not help this map not be a mess. But the fun kind of mess. Back behind Movie Bob. No, I said Jim Sterling earlier. Yeah, Jim Sterling. God. This is why the Gamorreans suck. And why I hate them. I also want to see a scene with Luke just going ham on people. There's not enough if I could change one thing about Star Wars, there would be way more scenes of just people hacking away at soldiers with lightsabers. What modern cartoons do I like? That was, Caleb Trigg that asked that. Gravity Falls is pretty amazing. But, yeah, that's a modern cartoon even though it's over now. There's a few anime I like. I really like My Hero Academia. I really like, I really like One Punch Man, but for different reasons than most people say that they like One Punch Man. Like I think Saitama's the worst part of his own show. Literally every other character is just amazing, and Saitama's just kind of boring. And I'm somebody who likes those kinds of characters, so that's kind of saying a lot. Like, I will defend Superman till the day I die. Get a peek at Anita Sarkeesian here. Other than Gravity Falls, other modern cartoons, Adventure Time is pretty good. Not really my thing. I'm not that big into it, but it's a pretty neat little cartoon. Better than anything, Cartoon Network was putting out, in the late 2000s. Like from 2007 on, it was better than any of that. I gave the first season of Star vs. the Forces of Evil a try. It was pretty good. I liked it. I'm gonna watch season 2 eventually. What other Mario cartoons? I think that's really it as far as cartoons I've watched. I've heard a lot of good things about Steven Universe. Haven't watched a single minute of it though. This has been a really solid decade for animation, if nothing else. But I just don't watch TV anywhere near as much as I did as a little kid, so I can tell you literally every single cartoon that played on Cartoon Network from the year 1999 to the year 2008. But I can only name like 2 or 3 shows that are on Cartoon Network now. that just kind of goes to show where my focus has drifted in the years since. Alright, name one thing. G-Man Q said, name one thing Miles and Carrie are good at writing. Carrie's funny. And Miles is good at like small. Miles is good at anything that doesn't require continuity. Anything that doesn't require any kind of like knowledge of things that characters have said and done. He is a master of that. Good example is the scene with Tai and Yang training in Volume 4. Well, the best example is the episode Burning the Candle, which I already talked about earlier in the stream. The entire reason why I really got into Ruby. Miles is really good at stuff like that, and Carrie's good at writing jokes. He's actually like a really good comedy writer. Which is why he wrote most of Chibi and wrote most of Chibi Season 1. He hasn't written like anything from Chibi Season 2, but to my understanding, he's focused a lot on Camp Camp, which is the best show Rooster Teeth has right now. The Jacob11 asked, what do you think fuels shipping more, fan fiction or fan art? Fan art. Fan fiction requires people to read, and people don't like to read a lot of times. Fan art, you can just look at it and be like, oh man, they look cute together. Like, fan art is the only reason why I'm actually kind of fine with White Rose. Even though I'm, like, huge Lancaster shipper, huge Lancaster writer, but I'm fine with White Rose because I really love the fan art. Socklacard asked, Rocco's Modern Life. I watched a little bit of it as a kid. Rocco's Modern Life got big right as I kind of stopped watching Nickelodeon and started devoting all of my TV time to Cartoon Network. So I kind of missed out on Rocco's Modern Life. Yeah, that's another reason why I never got into SpongeBob. It's because I just wasn't watching Nickelodeon when it started and when it got big. And then by the time I actually gave it a shot, that kind of comedy just does not gel with me. I do not like... I'm fine with idiot characters. I'm not fine with idiot characters being the lead. Idiot characters should be side characters. And SpongeBob is nothing but idiot characters. And I just got killed by Gamorrean as Luke. Oh, Jesus. DeAndre Kidd asked, do you think Volume 5 we will start to learn about Summer Rose? I have to agree with Socklacard there. We bloody better. Summer Rose is kind of a fascinating character. Despite her not having a single second of screen time, unless you count like the apparition and like the red trailer and the opening for Volume 1 and that picture, like, she still has a massive presence over the show, and she has it because of Ruby. So yeah, I'm really excited to learn more about Summer Rose and finding out like how she died, and I kind of want to know what she was like, because I kind of wrote her to be super Paragon when I did my Stark flashbacks in Beyond. But I kind of filtered it as Ruby sees her as just this perfect paragon of a human being. And so, like, Ruby's perception probably isn't the most accurate. In fact, it's probably the least accurate to, like, what Summer Rose was actually like, because Ruby just idolizes her way too much. Just wasted a bunch of my own guys, but wasted a bunch of their guys too. That's all that matters. DeAndre Kidd asked, what are the chances of Miles and Carrie screwing up Raven Bronwyn? Hard to say, because we don't know that much about Raven. So there's not really much to screw up. They can really take it in any number of directions and it would be fine. Summer Rose arc has to be a tearjerker. If they ever do a flashback of the mission where she loses her life, they need to sit down and watch those couple of episodes of Naruto Shippuden with Minato and Kushina Uzumaki. They need to watch that like 10 times and be like, that is what we're going for. Because that scene is brilliant. Like, I've said this before, but... Oh, we're doing a hunt now. But when Masahide Kishimoto is on, he is virtually without peer. He is without peer within his genre, shonen manga. He is without peer as far as Japanese storytellers go. When he's on, that is. He's not always on. In fact, he's only on like 30% of the time. But when he wrote the Kushina and Minato tragedy, he was on. Like, full stop. He somehow turned two characters who literally, up to that point, the only thing we knew about them was that they were strong and that they died. That was the only thing we knew about them going in. And they somehow still, like, he somehow still created a very emotional character death that I for one did not want to see. But I did. Like, I didn't want to see in a good way. Because even thinking about just that string of episodes, I'm just like, oh my god. It's rough. There's a lot of rough character deaths in Naruto. It's something that Kishimoto does not get nearly enough credit for. And as far as I know, he does get a lot of credit, but it's still not enough. The Jacob11 asked, have you played Life is Strange? No. In fact, the only video I've seen about it was from Fat Man Falling, calling it the worst ending of, what was it, 2015 when it came out? Yeah. I'm fine with the, like, really cinematic kind of Neo point-and-click adventure games. Like, I'm a fan of Heavy Rain. Beyond Two Souls can suck a dick, though. Beyond Two Souls is, like, a textbook example of how not to do that style of game. Yeah, I'm fine with cinematic games. I'm just... Time travel is a can of worms I really never want to touch as a writer. There's no easy way to do it. There's no right way to do it. There's just all wrong ways. River McIntosh asked, have you seen The Room? Yes. I don't know really what else to say. I've seen The Room. I don't think it really deserves to get talked about as much as it does. It is a really bad movie, and it is an interestingly bad movie. It is the kind of movie that you, like, get people together and make fun of. And that's, like, the proper way to watch it, but I could think of way more... I can think of plenty of worse movies, and I can think of movies that are worse for way more interesting reasons. But Tommy Wiseau's acting, man, that dude is a national treasure. Every single line out of his mouth is just a meme. Aren't they making a movie about him? I could have sworn I saw like a trailer for a movie that's about Tommy Wiseau. I can't remember the name of it. But that's just absurd. And I think a lot of it is that, unlike a lot of people who have made bad movies, Tommy Wiseau is, like, completely fine with it and loves it. Like, when The Room went on Riff Tracks, I listened to part of the interview with Tommy Wiseau, and Tommy Wiseau was talking about, like, oh yeah, I love Riff Tracks, and it is an honor to have my movie featured on the show, and I've always been a fan of it. It's just another art form. Criticism is another art form, and no, Tommy Wiseau is a freaking cool guy. Like, when you get down to it, terrible actor, terrible writer, terrible director, but dude's cool. Dude's pretty freaking cool. Joel Schumacher's kind of in that camp too. Like, there's kind of that famous interview with Joel Schumacher after Batman and Robin was released, where he's just like, "Hey guys, I was trying to just entertain children. If it didn't work for you, oh well, I'm sorry. I apologize. The movie wasn't meant for if it didn't entertain you, that's because the movie wasn't meant for you." But yeah, if you ever want to know, like, I recommend at least renting DVDs of bad movies and listening to director commentary. The Batman and Robin DVD commentary is kind of heartwarming in a way, because it was like, yeah, they all know that they had no business doing what they were doing, and they were basically being paid to make a 2-hour-long toy commercial. That was all the budget allowed for. That was all this production staff allowed for. They were trying to appeal completely to kids, and the studio mandates and stuff, and yeah, I guess the more Warner Brothers changes, the more they stay the same. And I'll say this in Batman and Robin's defense. If you had a gun up to my head, and I had to watch one movie with you, and I had to pick between Batman and Robin and Batman vs. Superman, I would not hesitate to say Batman and Robin. I never want to watch Batman v Superman again, and I will be down to clown with some Batman and Robin. That movie is another one that's like a meme, and Batman and Robin gets a bad rap, and again, like, it is a terrible, god-awful movie. But there's enjoyment to be had in it. The ice puns are really corny in a probably bad way, but a fun way to make fun of. George Clooney has no business being Batman. Chris O'Donnell does a good job as Robin. And the guy who plays Alfred in all those movies is... He's a really solid Alfred. I hesitate to say best. Because Michael Caine did a pretty bang-up job. And Jeremy Irons was also a lot of fun as Alfred. That was like the best part of Batman v Superman, was Jeremy Irons as Alfred. Oops, thought that was a droid. I wonder how many Jedi in the Clone Wars accidentally did that to a clone trooper and were like, oops. Count Dooku did it. And Count Dooku's like, that's a bull-faced lie. I haven't killed anyone this entire damn show. Alright. DeAndre Kidd said, like Twilight? I guess that's in reference to movies that are fun to enjoy. Yes, Twilight is kind of up there, but not all the Twilight movies are like that. The first Twilight is the third Twilight. The odd number Twilight movies are fun to make fun of. The even number Twilight movies are insufferable. Like, just so goddamn boring. Just big nothing burgers. Like, Eclipse at least has a pretty freaking cool action scene towards the end. A terribly rendered action scene, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. And the last Twilight movie was kind of like an X-Men movie. It was more like a bad X-Men movie rather than a bad Twilight movie. So that was something. Into the jaws of death I go. Caleb Trigg asked, as a writer, what do you find hard about writing? Details. I'm not detail-oriented at all. Which is why, when something isn't dialogue, I tend to skim over stuff. Like, I I give very brief descriptions of what things look like or what the environment looks like. That was kind of like why I was worried about writing action scenes, because I didn't think I had... I still don't think I really had the vocabulary to do fight scenes justice a lot of times. There's a lot of repetitive verbiage. A lot of... And then he punched him in the face, and then he countered, and then she punched him in the chest. A lot of stuff like that. I saw another question pop up. That's why I ran face first into that crate. Alright, DeAndre Kid asked, have you played Injustice 2? No, but I played a lot of Injustice 1. Favorite character to play as was probably Flash. I didn't play a whole lot. I rented it for PS4 for a weekend, and I gave all the characters a bit of a spin. Flash is the one I think I felt the most comfortable with. Although my favorite character in that game is... Batman's my favorite superhero out of the bunch. It would go like Batman, Superman, then probably Flash. But as far as like in the context of the story and just taking those versions of those characters, I really liked Shazam. Shazam's just got a really cool concept as a hero, which is kind of odd because he started off as just like a really generic Superman clone, but they found a really fun way to spin it with the whole Billy Batson alter ego. Back then he was called Captain Marvel though, but then Marvel got all uppity about it, and so now the Captain Marvel that's kind of cool can't be Captain Marvel, and the worst person to ever have the title of Captain Marvel is the only one who's legally allowed to be called Captain Marvel now, and she's everything wrong with Marvel Comics today. Everything wrong with modern day Marvel can be summed up with her and Riri Williams. DeAndre Kid said, I hated Twilight. I hated how girls in my high school like it was the best thing. I had a very different experience in high school with Twilight. All the girls in my high school kind of knew it was trash, but they enjoyed it on that level. In very much the same way that all the guys in my high school loved the Transformers movies. And you want to talk about oddly good equivalencies. Transformers and Twilight. Problem is that they're still making Transformers movies. Devin O asked, or said, I'm waiting for my male trap character in Ruby. It's the archetype we're missing. Is there tsundere? Yang getting a potential male love interest would be cool too. Assuming you didn't mistype by saying trap character, Godspeed, man. Not the kind of character I would like to write, but you do you. For tsundere, Weiss is a bit of a tsundere. A little bit. And if White Rose ever does happen, it is going to be very, like, tsundere-esque. Yang getting a male love interest, I would love it. I would love it. She needs one. She needs a primary love interest that isn't Blake. Because right now, at least in my experience, Bumblebee is bigger than Black Sun, and it is entirely due to the fact that Blake is kind of the only character that really ships with Yang. There's also Weiss, but not really Weiss. Like, Yang and Weiss don't have that many interactions to go off of. Yeah. I would kind of like for Yang's love interest to be a character we've already seen. Like Oscar or Sage or someone. I don't like characters that only exist to be a love interest. I want the character to mean something more. Which seems kind of hypocritical because of how much I love Naruhina. But Hinata kind of existed for more than just being a love interest, and her primary, like, thing in the story was she was the first person to, like, buy what Naruto was selling. She was the first person to, like, believe that he could and should be Hokage. She was the first person that really believed in him, even though she didn't say it until it was actually cool to say that you believe in Naruto. Yeah, as far as the themes and stuff of Naruto go, Hinata kind of, Hinata kind of embodied the themes and message of Naruto better than Naruto did himself, at least towards the end. And Hinata's, like, good evidence of, like, no, just because, Naruto comes from a really powerful family does not mean he was always destined for greatness. Just look at Hinata. She's got all the good genes, and, like, that OP freaking, Byakugan, and she was still kind of a pathetic fighter for a long time. But I'm super biased towards Naruto. I think it's the best shonen series out there, despite its flaws. Despite its numerous, incalculable flaws. It's still leagues better than Dragon Ball or One Piece or blech, or fucking Fairy Tail. I'm glad that garbage is getting cancelled. And no, any Fairy Tail fans, if any of you 12 people are Fairy Tail fans, I am not apologizing for that. Fairy Tail is garbage. What do you think is the most, this is the Jacob 11. What do you think is the most fucked up ship in RWBY? The easy answer is, Enabler. But there's a lot of ships, or not a lot of ships, but there's a couple ships like that. Ruby X Yang, Weiss X Winter. I think the most messed up though is, and this is a real ship, guys, Ruby X Crow. Here comes the Fairy Tail fans in my stream coming to its defense. I'm not reading them right now because I try to only look and read the comments in between lives. Okay, see if I can judge this jump right. Nope. Nope. Okay, I survived. Long way it is. How did I kill someone doing that? Yeah. Yang Close's ship is Mercury. Didn't, like, Sakura, she made fun of him not having parents. Sakura, I don't recall. If she did, it would have been really early on. Like, when she still, like, hated his guts and everybody was just... nobody was on Naruto's side. Yeah, I do kind of remember that. It was actually when Naruto was disguised as Sasuke and was talking with Sakura, and Sakura's like, wasn't making fun of him for not having parents, but using the fact that he doesn't have parents. I'm gonna finally play the Clone Commander because I've had plenty of opportunities to play as him, and just passed him up. As, like, reason why he's so obnoxious, like, can't really, she says something along the lines of, like, you can't really blame him. I mean, he never had parents to teach him right from wrong. Which was still a messed up thing to say. Saklicard said, Fairy Tail isn't that bad, it's BS, but it's still entertaining to watch. I disagree. Theme music on point. Haven't really listened to a lot of the Fairy Tail soundtrack. I do listen to a lot of the Naruto soundtrack. Fun fact, anytime I write a scene with Levi in Rubyond, I listen to the track Need to Be Strong from the Naruto soundtrack. The dun 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 dun. Da, 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 da. That kind of sounds like for Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica. I am a Fairy Tail fan. It's just stupid fun. I'm not gonna argue with that because I have not watched as much of it as people who actually found it tolerable. So, yeah, it probably is, like, really stupid fun. Which, I could boil, that's... Stupid fun is kind of how I would describe most anime. Like, I don't think I've ever said this on, like, a public forum like this, but, or I probably posted it on Facebook, but I've never said it out loud with my own voice in a mic on my computer. But, not that big of a fan of most anime. Cyclicard said, Kishimoto doesn't know how to write girls. Correction, he didn't know how to write girls. For the longest time. How do I just hit E? Yeah. He got better towards the end there, which is kind of sad because by the time he was actually getting good, it was time to kind of wrap up the show. But yeah, it's again like Kushina Uzumaki was one of the best characters in the entire show, and she's only in like 3 episodes. Same thing with Conan, the blue-haired Akatsuki paper mache lady, who is like that one chick from Read or Die. And Sarada. Sarada is one of my favorite characters in Naruto. She was a big inspiration for Nova. She was a big inspiration for Nova, and her backstory was a big inspiration for Ice in Ruby on Generations. And the Naruto Gaiden thing is probably like the perfect example of being like, when Kishimoto is on point, he is virtually without peer, because he took a break. He took the first break he ever had in 15 fucking years, and he came back and wrote 10 of the best chapters he ever wrote with Naruto Gaiden. It's kind of absurd. I wish the Boruto stuff would have kept up that consistency, because let me tell you, nothing will make you miss Kishimoto more than reading the Boruto manga. Demon has the right idea. She kind of did. Fairy Tail is okay now. DeAndre Kid says Shikamaru didn't hate Naruto. But Shikamaru didn't exactly like Naruto either. He was just kind of indifferent. He was ambivalent to him. In fact, Shikamaru was kind of ambivalent to everything up until the Hidan and Kakuzu arc. That's when he finally like took charge, and that arc was all about him, and that was when he finally like stepped up and was like, you know what, I'm gonna be the brains behind Naruto's operation. Like, I'm gonna be there to lend my intelligence to him anytime he needs it. Devin O said, I despise Sasuke. He is one of the biggest problems with the series. My apologies to anyone who likes him. Sasuke is like 10 different characters, and 5 of them are really good, 5 of them are really bad. And the fact that there's 10 of them is also just kind of really bad. Sasuke is, for me, the poster boy of a character who is terribly conceived, but well executed. Like, he is executed about as well as he could have been under the stipulations that caused his creation. It's pretty common knowledge amongst the Naruto fanboys, like myself. But you guys might not know it, so I'm going to fill you in on this. Kishimoto did not originally plan for Sasuke to exist. He did not plan for a rival character to exist. That was always going to be the role of the villains. The villains were always going to be like that parallel to Naruto, and on that front, that's another thing that like Kishimoto is consistently good at, is drawing all the parallel. Sometimes he's a little too good at it. Like he's a little too on the nose about all the parallels between all the villains and Naruto. And he's kind of done it like 10 times. Like he did it with Aku, he did it with Neji, he did it with Gaara. He did it with Gaara like constantly. He did it with Pain, he did it with Obito. And I guess that was kind of it. Because Madara, to me, Madara was always kind of like the dark reflection of Sasuke. Like what Sasuke was turning into. Rather than what Naruto would turn into if he gave up hope. Which is what Obito was. Yeah, same thing with Orochimaru. I always felt like Orochimaru was more of a dark reflection of Sasuke than of Naruto. But yeah, Sasuke was forced into the story by Kishimoto's editor, whose name escapes me. But basically, the editor within the Japanese manga industry, the editors have a lot of power. If the editor does not approve, you change it. And the editor was like, hey, basically it was, if you don't give Naruto a rival character, we're not publishing your story. And that's why Sasuke was created. Cyclocar said, Kaijo, a good example of stupid fun. Never heard of it. Zach Knott says, oh, hello. Hello, Zach. I actually know who that is. DeAndre Kidd said, Sasuke was like, I'm just here to get strong enough to kill my brother, so all you girls can fuck off. Yes, that was one of Sasuke's personality traits. Consumed by vengeance and all that. Caleb Trigg said, what kind of villain would you write in for Ruby? By that I mean an archetype. I guess we probably already got one. We probably have the villain that I would put into Ruby. I would make a villain that is kind of a dark reflection of Ruby, and I think that might be where they're taking Cinder. Can't be sure though. I hope that's kind of where they're taking Cinder, because despite I feel like I'm in the minority here, but I don't think Jean is going to be the one to beat Cinder. I think they'll fight at one point, but I don't think that's like the end game. I don't think that's any kind of like major thing. It's just gonna be something to happen because why not? I think the series is really building up Ruby versus Cinder, and so I want Cinder to be. I want to build I would want to build parallels between Cinder and Ruby, and if not that, then I would create a character to parallel Ruby or one of the other major characters. Because a trope I kind of like is the we're not so different, you and I. Although I hate how it's used in a lot of instances. And for that, I would turn you on to Overly Sarcastic Productions. Red's video on We're Not So Different hits the nail right on the head, as she almost always does in her videos. It's one of the best. If you're a writer or a critic, or if you're into history, because they do a lot of history videos too, I cannot recommend Overly Sarcastic Productions enough. And why is it not letting me hit this dude? There we go. Oh, I was about to get in that turret, but it was destroyed. Oh, I might lose this. I'm not killing people fast enough. Go Clone Trooper. I should have gotten an engineer and gotten in a tank. I could still get in the tank, but it's not going to be as useful. Oh, I can play as Yoda now. The best thing to do with Yoda on this game is to go to Dagobah and hide in the swamps. They won't be able to see you. G-Man Q said, I want to see an anti-hero character in Ruby. Maybe Raven is it. I agree. I think Raven is it. DeAndre Kidd asked, who do you think is gonna be the best villain in Team Witch? I'm gonna say Hazel. I'm gonna say Cinder. I think when Cinder gets her stuff together, she's gonna be an absolute force to be reckoned with. And yes, a lot of that has to do with the fact that she's the Fall Maiden, but I really see Cinder being the Darth Vader to Salem's Emperor. Like, to equate it to Star Wars, I really think Cinder is going to be the most prevalent, persistent, physical threat to Team Ruby. Cyclix card said, nah, DeAndre. It's Watts. A man with that mustache and dapper fashion is gonna be interesting. Maybe. His voice by Chris Abbott, which gives me hopes, but yeah, I lost. My mind wasn't in it, and I wasn't playing right for XL. Caleb Trigg said, for me, it's be an omnipresent being and mysterious brute duo that have a cult of worshippers that hunt down silver-eyed warriors. So basically Levi. DeAndre Kidd said, my reason is that Ozpin was kind of shook up by him. Oscar does not know how to fight at all, as far as we know. Basically, Jean would be able to beat him up. And so, that's not really saying, much. I do think Hazel's gonna be, like, the brute force guy of the team. Like, I see Hazel as the muscle, Tyrion as the one with the most actual skill. Then Watts is the smartest. He's the brains. But I think Watts is actually going to be the weakest fighter of the bunch of Team Witch. And then Cinder's the powerhouse. Cinder's the one with all the magic BS. Devin O asked, how do you feel about Adam? Sir, I like him, but sometimes it's like I can't tell whether he wants to protect his people, or be with Blake, or kill her. We'll see. Yes, no, all of the above, maybe. Yeah, I... What the hell? Damn, Gamorrean. By the way, Darth Maul is my favorite hero character in this game. He's just such a badass. It's kind of ridiculous. Unless I get backed into a corner with a Gamorrean guard and a chain gun. Kitty Kirishima says Jean is pretty strong, though he did stop Nucleabe in his tracks. Oscar should be grateful for that beatdown. Sure. G-Man Q asked, what do you think of Jake the One-Man Band? Some of his videos are good. I'm gonna be as nice as I can. We've had beef in the past. I like some of his videos. He's really on point when it comes to Blake. In fact, a lot of the complaints that I have about Blake actually come from his videos. Are things that, like, some of it's stuff I realized, but some of it I didn't realize until his videos. Like the video of, like, why everything is Blake's fault. I didn't even think of it that way until I watched that video, and it kind of changed my perception on Blake to be even more negative. And as far as Ruby reviewers go, not including myself because obvious personal bias, he's the best out there. His videos are just kind of shallow, though. Like, he spends way too long just restating what happened in the episode. And that's what his videos are, frankly, just way too long. A Ruby review does not need to be longer than the freaking episode, and it's because he just restates everything that happened in the episode. So, I still think he's more entertaining than, like, the Kaito Dan or Chibi reviews, or even me in my earlier videos. I've gotten way better, by the way. But seriously, those first couple videos I did are so super cringeworthy. Back when I was still trying to figure out, like, what's important to say, what's not important to say, what should I bring up, complaints, strengths, weaknesses, etc. How should I make the videos more visually appealing and more auditorily appealing. But yeah, and he kind of just goes on these weird tangents sometimes, and it really drags down the videos, and I don't know. He's alright, I guess. So yeah, I have a lot of opinions on Jake the One Man Band, both as a reviewer and as a person. So. But he liked my Blake video, which, you know, I knew he would, because that is something we've always seen eye to eye on. The Jacob V11 asked, what do you think Neo will be doing in the future volumes? Fighting. I've said this numerous times, but she's a really good henchman character. We don't need to know her backstory. We don't need to learn anything about her. She's basically Bob from the 1989 Batman movie. Just this kind of, like, she doesn't, like, well, if you've seen Ruby, you know what Neo's like. Quiet, assassin, deadly, kind of crazy. But Bob in the 1989 Batman movie, he was Joker's #1 a guy, and he was just kind of like super loyal, a lot of fun too. But yeah, I think Neo's role is mostly just going to be as an extra pair of hands anytime the villains need heavy lifting done. Like, anytime that they launch any kind of offensive, she's just going to be on call to lend her services. And I don't think she needs to be any deeper than that. I think trying to make her deeper than that will take away from kind of the mysteriousness that has made her such a beloved character in the franchise. DeAndre Kidd asked, what would you like to see from the Team Stark arc? I kind of already covered that with, I would want to see Summer Rose's death. I don't think there's really any point to having a Team Stark flashback if you're not gonna show that. And I mean, unless you show like them meeting and stuff like actually happening with them. But yeah, I think if you're gonna do a Team Stark arc, I would want to see Summer Rose's death, and I would want it to connect with what's going on in the current timeline. I do not want it to just be a random throwaway thing that they just shoehorned in, because those characters deserve more than that. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of good questions. I wasn't expecting had this many questions. I'm having a pretty good turnout. I know like only 12 of you are watching, but considering this is just to celebrate 100 subscribers, this is like over 10%. This is good. Do you think Caleb Trigg asked, do you think with Gira there will be a civil war within the White Fang? Yes. I don't know if I'm looking forward to it, just because they haven't had the best track record with the whole White Fang storyline. But it's something. It's something happening, which is always a plus for Ruby. Unless it's done in a way like the rooftop fight scene from Volume 4. That just... They should be ashamed of themselves. G-Man Q asked, do you think Jacques will send like an assassin to fetch Weiss no matter what the cost? No, I actually don't. This is something that me and Dude What the Heck have... I think it's Dude What the Heck, or High Power. Me and some of the other podcast members have, disagreed on. I don't think Jacques cares enough about Weiss. To send like an assassin or anything like that after her. He'd rather just cut her off and like not welcome her home or anything like that. Like make her not allowed to see her mother or Whitley, but I don't think that's not exactly a loss. He won't allow her to see Klein there. Like that's I really have a feeling that Jacques is gonna try like keep Weiss as far away from the SDC as possible. On, what are you doing here? This is the Clone Wars. You're like 12. Right? Isn't that like how old he is? Isn't he like supposed to be like 10 years older than Luke and Leia? I love how Darth Maul's double saber's just a freaking blender. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Weiss does this volume. I think there is going to be a lot of focus on her. But then again, that might just be because Weiss is kind of on my mind between the Weiss trailer that came out the other day and the Weiss video I made and finished that same day. For all we know, Weiss might hardly freaking be in the volume. It might be all about Yang, or all about Blake, or all about Ruby, or all about Jean, or all about Oscar. We don't know. Oh, how would you have... Oh, this is Kitty Kirishima. Oh, how would you have Weiss regain the Schnee Dust Company? Oh, man, I haven't even thought of that. I would have her kind of... This is kind of tricky territory because nothing's the godfather of anything except the Godfather, but I would try having it very, like, Godfather 2-esque. With the Battle of the Corleone brothers. Michael and, blanking on the dude's name. I know it starts with an F, like Fernando. I don't know. I still need to rewatch The Godfather. I haven't seen them in a couple years. I bought all 3 Godfather movies on Blu-ray like a year ago, and I just haven't sat down and watched them. They're still just unopened, sitting on my bookshelf, waiting. But yeah, Godfather's a commitment. Great movie though. DeAndre Kidd said, I'm thinking about dumping Yang for Raven. Do you know how to leave after... Oh. Waifus. Oh no. This is not good. Somebody take a command post, please, so I can spawn back in. She'll still dump the kid on you, though. Yeah, pretty much my type of girl. So you want to be a single daddy, why do Weiss? Okay, Devin O asks, why do Weiss and Winter have the same semblance when every single person's semblance is unique? Because the whole every semblance is unique is a goddamn lie. No, they explain it as like hereditary semblances, which... As if I haven't talked nearly enough about Naruto in this stream that's supposed to be about Ruby and Star Wars. I kind of see hereditary semblances as Kekkei Genkai. Like, they're really rare, but they're going to be common within the show. Because the people who have hereditary semblances are going to naturally be the stronger people because... I mean, like we saw in the White trailer, who better to teach Weiss how to use her glyphs than her big sister? Whereas Yang doesn't really have anybody to teach her how to best use her semblance. She has to kind of make it up on her own. And same thing with Blake. But yeah, I really don't buy the whole every semblance is unique. So many semblances, even with people that aren't related, are so arbitrarily different, like Emerald and Neo. G-Man Q asks, do you think Winter could die in Volume 5 for Weiss development? Could. I don't think it'll happen in Volume 5, though. I can see it happening in Volume 6. I can see it happening in Volume 6, not Volume 5. DeAndre Kidd said Ty and I would have something in common. Caleb Trigg said, yeah, Ruby cannot keep its story structure straight. Just another problem to add to the list. Yeah, I kind of made an entire video about that. With the why what if Ruby Volume 1 was good. I'm getting a tank this time. Oh. So I'm kind of safe in this tank. Okay, no new questions. Right click button isn't working again. If I can snipe the dude out. Nope. It worked. Playing this map as the Empire is kind of difficult because of all the Wookiees. Like, you don't know which one of them are the limitless native population and which one of them are actual bots that actually count for something. They all look not to be racist to Wookiees, but they all look the same. Finally got my missiles to work, and I missed. I must actually have Crow's semblance. My gunner's gone. Wonder what happened to him. Did he jump out or die? Most grenades are so useless against tanks. Like, they only take out a little bit of health. DeAndre Kidd said, do you think in the fight versus Tyrion was the best Crow can do, or does he have some more tricks up his sleeve? On one hand, he was kind of held back by Team Ranger being in the way. So he had to worry about that. On the other hand, if not for Team Ranger, I don't think Crow would have stood a chance on his own. I think Tyrion is too strong. I think Tyrion is too fast, too strong, too skilled, even for Crow. Because, I mean, you think about it logically, which is something that Miles and Carrie probably didn't do when they were writing that scene. Tyrion took a lot of damage from Nora and Ruby. Even before Crow showed up, and then after Crow showed up when Tyrion was stupidly blocking bullets with his tail instead of just dodging them. Like, we get it, it looked cool, but you know, that took away a lot of aura, and that is why you got your tail cut off. Caleb Trigg asked, which of your OCs would you want to be in Ruby? I guess it could be teams as well. I'm really partial to Team Arany, but I'm not sure the way Ruby is going that Team Arany would have much of a purpose. I would want I would want some of my villains to be in there. Whether it's Levi or Akagi or Toby, it doesn't really matter. A lot of my OC villains serve like really important functions and really important roles, whereas a lot of my hero OCs are just extra hands on deck, or like people with really specific powers to be used in really specific certain situations. Like, in Ruby on Veil, Winter's whole, like, little team basically existed to show that Winter was a team player and did have a team that she cared about, and that, she did like the Faunus because one of them was a Faunus, and one of them was like the lead doctor in that like final battle against the Hecatonchirus, and that was basically the only reason why I even made her, was to be the medic in that one battle. As far as my other OCs, I've got a lot of OCs, but a lot of them are pretty superfluous or exist in a different time period within Remnant. DeAndre K said, my last one was a question. I just mistakenly forgot. Question mark. Yeah, I got that. I got the question and I answered it. Devin O asked, Blake should have Crow's semblance. It would have made more sense for her character. And also for her literary reference. Or, not literary reference. But, historically, crows are not actually harbingers of bad luck. Black cats are. Hopped in the tank just to die. Is it annoying that... DeAndre Kidd asks, is it annoying that community keeps asking LGBT characters? Yes and no. On one hand, I'm all about representation. I'm all about character diversity. On the other hand, the way that diversity is handled, this decade has been the absolute wrong way to handle it. It's actually like sending people groups back decades. Like, Mass Effect is the best example I can think of for this. The gay character whose name escapes me because I don't really care that much about Mass Effect. But, his one and only character trait is that he's gay. Caleb Trigg asked, do you still want to see Team Funky and Ruby? Yes, I need my other half of Team Funky so I can do my Team Funky Scooby-Doo adventure story. Something funky this way comes. What is... The Jacob V11 asked, what is your favorite monster movie? That is actually really easy. But I don't want to make it an easy question because... I do want to pay lip service to some of my other favorites. My favorite monster movie is King Kong, the original 1933 classic by RKO. It had a lot of adventure, it had dinosaurs, which the fact that it had dinosaurs already puts it above like 90% of monster movies. Just on a personal basis. Like, there's literally no easier way for me to like a movie than to put dinosaurs in it. Even if it doesn't even have to make sense. It doesn't even really make sense in King Kong. But dinosaurs make everything better. So, King Kong would be up there. Godzilla, which I had an argument with somebody on the Facebook page Ruby and Beyond about this. I like Gojira. I like Godzilla King of the Monsters a little bit more. And that sounds sacrilegious to Godzilla fans, but whatever. I'm also a big fan of the Universal Monster movies. Lon Chaney Jr.'s Wolfman. Spencer Tracy as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is one of my favorite movies of all time. And that's the Jekyll and Hyde movie that people don't talk about for some reason. I thought it was really good because it showed like a definite change between Jekyll and Hyde, without reducing Hyde to just grotesque monster face, which is what the Frederick March version did. And the Frederick March version is widely considered the best version of Jekyll and Hyde. And I disagree with that notion strictly on the basis that I want my Mr. Hyde to look at least. I want my Mr. Hyde to at least look like he's human. Out of the Universal monster movies, though, my favorite is Bride of Frankenstein. Frankenstein's just a fascinating character. I love the meme question mark whether it's actually a meme or just words of wisdom. Knowledge is knowing that Frankenstein wasn't the monster. Wisdom is knowing that Frankenstein was the monster. In Mary Shelley's book, and all the movie versions too, the monster is just called the monster, or at most Frankenstein's monster. And Dr. Victor Frankenstein is the protagonist, and I use that term very loosely because the dude tries to play God and the dude pays for it. And I love that about that movie, and it's way more fascinating than any of the other Universal monster movies. And all the Universal monster movies are fascinating. Like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde being the duality of man, Wolfman being the battle between man's logic and his animal nature, Dracula being a freaking allegory for the European aristocracy. Literally in Eastern Europe, at the time that Bram Stoker wrote Dracula, the aristocracy was, quote-unquote, sucking the blood out of the peasants. And by blood, I mean money. But, yeah, that Dracula is basically a big freaking allegory for how much the noble class of Europe sucked back in Victorian era Europe. I'm not gonna look. I wish you could fire while you were falling. Although that would kind of make Boba Fett broken. Alright. Cyclic Card said there's only one answer, Godzilla. Caleb Trigg said, what was your favorite novel or book series? I am well read enough, but I'm not a book like fiend. I don't read a whole lot. So for favorite book and favorite book series, I would have to go with Sherlock Holmes. I love all the books, and it's one of the few really long book franchises that I have read everything in. I've read every single Sherlock Holmes book written by Arthur Conan Doyle. And most of them are pretty short. Most of them will only take like 30 minutes to an hour to read, because they were all published in like newspapers and stuff back in the day. I also love Alice in Wonderland. I already talked about how I love the Darth Bane books. Hunger Games was alright, but kind of fell apart towards the end. I like Percy Jackson. Um, guys are probably waiting for me to bring up Harry Potter, but I've only actually read like 2 Harry Potter books, so they're good. But I by the time I actually like started like really getting into Harry Potter, the movies were coming out way faster than I could possibly read them. So I just watched the movies. I know I'm missing out on a lot of stuff, but the books don't really matter. An adaptation should stand on its own. And the Harry Potter movies were pretty good. Pretty good. I like them a lot. They're not among my favorites. Like if you're on the Ruby and Beyond Facebook page, you'll see every Tuesday at usually at an ungodly hour. I'll post a top 10 list. And when I get to like top 10 movies of the 2000s and 2010s, don't be surprised to not see Harry Potter anywhere on there. Even though I do like all the movies, they're just not among my favorites. DeAndre Kidd said Flint X Weiss Ice Cole. I prefer Cool Jazz. Also, I put a poll: who is cooler between Flint and Neptune lost by a landslide. Yes, as he should. G-Man Q said, do you think Salem is a Grimm, half-Grimm, or possessed human? I think she is like Kerrigan from StarCraft. I have no idea who that is. I've never played StarCraft. I don't think Salem is actually anything Grimm. I think she's human. And this is another thing that I'm in the minority on. I think she's completely human. I think that she's similar to Ozpin as far as like the age thing goes. And I think that she has infused herself with dust in her skin, which is something that was brought up in the World of Remnant video that has never come up in the series proper. And I think that's why she looks the way she does. And I think that there are ways, like ancient ways, to communicate with the Grimm and even maybe tame them, and Salem just knows how to do that. DeAndre Kidd asked, who do you think would win a fight, not a death battle, between Minato and Orochimaru? That's a tough one. Because we don't really see a whole lot of Minato like getting challenged, and Minato was like kind of all about that speed. Whereas Orochimaru was all about like that diversity, those jutsus and stuff. I think Orochimaru would win. Because I think the only thing that can beat Orochimaru is really powerful genjutsu. Which is the only reason why he ever lost to Itachi. So Itachi would just catch him in that Tsukiyomi and he'd be done. Same thing when Sasuke quote unquote killed him. Sasuke just caught him in a really powerful genjutsu and defeated him like really easily that way. Cyclocard said one of my favorite series was Artemis Fowl back in the day. Yes, we've talked about this. I have read the first Artemis Fowl book, and I have not read anything else from that series. Yeah, I've been doing this for over 3 hours. I think this is my last fight. So, ask any final questions. It could be anything. And I'll answer it at the end before I cut the stream. Oh, these command posts always getting taken. I would say get Liam Neeson not on this case, but Qui-Gon Jinn is not a playable character in this game. In fact, how many... I know the Lego Star Wars games have Qui-Gon as a playable character. Is there any other Star Wars games that have Qui-Gon as a playable character? I think there might be like an Episode 1 game with him, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure he was playable in that. I think it was just Obi-Wan. I know Obi-Wan had a game that was set like in Episode 1 where he was just by his lonesome. I wish this game had realistic physics, like the grass would catch on fire. Or destructible environments. Like in, what's it? Bad Company 2 had all the destructible environments that the developers then just covered up by saying like, smoke, dust, everywhere. You can't, to the point where you can't see. Caleb Trigg asked, how do you think Ruby will end? With Ruby standing over Salem's dead body and living happily ever after with Jean. DeAndre Kidd asked, did you ever watch Justice League Unlimited? Yes. Every single episode, twice. I watched it pretty religiously. Again, like, if it was on Cartoon Network between the years 1999 and 2007, I watched like every single episode. I would DVR, not DVR because DVR wasn't around back then. Kind of dating myself. I would hook up my VCR to my TV and pop a tape in and record it, because that's how you used to have to do those kinds of things back in the day. That is also how my dad got us like hundreds of movies for pennies, basically. That is how I was able to watch so many movies growing up. Like half the movies I've seen are because of like my dad doing that. He'd hook up 2 VCRs to a TV. And he'd rent movies from like Blockbuster back when that was still a thing. Which, man, I just kind of bummed myself out that Blockbuster's not even a thing anymore. But he would put the movie into a VCR, then we put a blank tape into the other VCR, and it record on that, and it would old school pirating movies, like no computer necessary. Keyboard Kitten said, I like Narnia. I like Narnia too. I had a collection of all the books, and then I gave it to my roommate, and he never gave it back when I moved out, or when he moved out, or when we both moved out of the dorms. So yeah, I have read all 7 Narnia books. I've read Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe 3 times, and I've read all the other ones twice. Now, I probably read Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe more like 4 or 5 times. It's the best of the bunch. As far as like just pure content goes, it's the best. I would kind of want... No, if I ever get in on like a Overly Sarcastic Productions Q&A, I'm gonna ask Red if she could do summaries on the Narnia books. Because the Narnia books are pretty good. Really, really simple. But it's meant for children. It's totally just meant for kids. And it's not trying to, like, redefine the way fantasy is perceived, like Lord of the Rings was. The Jacob V11 asks, why did my parents get divorced? It was because of you. I don't know the, like, rant thing that Ray does or whatever. I never really cared much for Ray's content. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they just actually just despised each other. And were just putting up with each other for as long as they did because of you. Scrolling up, making sure I didn't miss any questions. I thought I saw something about The Last Jedi. I guess not. Ah, well, since I brought up The Last Jedi, I'm cautiously optimistic about Last Jedi. It's got a lot riding on it, a lot more than Force Awakens did. Force Awakens just had to prove that Star Wars can work for a modern audience. Last Jedi actually has to be good. In all the ways Force Awakens kind of wasn't. Even though I love Force Awakens. But the overall quality of that movie depends a lot on how good Last Jedi and whatever Episode 9 ends up being. DeAndre Kidd asked, my last question, would you do a video on how Raven Branwen should be handled? Maybe? Look, your mileage may vary, but I think she's been handled pretty fine so far. Both time or two of the times that she's been brought up anyway, halfway through Volume 2 and in that one episode of Volume 4, she kind of like really drew me in and made me kind of not care about anyone else except like if they're not in some way related to Ruby, Yang, and that whole family dynamic, I don't care. Like that, every time Raven's been brought up, it's gotten to that point. I missed. I fired, and then I missed. And then I fired again, and I missed again. Just do that for the smoke to clear. Sniped him anyway. See, this is when this map kind of gets frustrating with the Empire. So you see all these Wookiees and then you kill them and then their counter doesn't go down because there's a random NPC or a random local Wookiee. Oh, wrong button. Taking pot shots. Oh, it would be a Bothan. Hold on. There we go. Alright, last call for questions. This is the last call for questions, so... And then wait a minute. The stream's just about caught up with me. Alright, so if that's all your questions, I mean... Thank you guys for joining me. This has been a learning experience. And a new experience, and a good opportunity to play one of my all-time favorite games. Now, after I cut the stream, I'm probably gonna get started writing on another chapter of something. Not Ruby related, because nothing Ruby related is coming out from me until August. So yeah, everyone have a good night. Get some sleep. It's 1 in the morning over here. And yeah, once again, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it.